Hello, my name is Dylan Martinez Francisco. I am an assistant professor and co-chair of the Integrative Therapy and Healing Practices program at Pacifica Graduate Institute. I'm really excited and honored to be participating in the Parenting in Depth Microcredential program, and really looking forward to applying depth psychological perspectives to the realities and experiences of parenting, in relationship to parents themselves and also to professionals who work with parents and children. Challenges of discipline and consequences, I think, is shared by most parents, all parents I know. It's an extraordinary challenge to navigate care with structure and consequences and discipline in a way that feels authentic and in service to the child's well-being. A depth psychological perspective in relationship to doing that ethically is to recognize the distinct, unique realities of both parent and child. And one of the things that does is allow that space between parent and child to be negotiated and not be a battle between whose reality wins. And so a parent has a responsibility in relationship to life, and what they know, to set boundaries, to know what's harmful, to communicate those things in ways while also recognizing they're communicating to a different being who is coming into the world with their own perspective and life and calling. And doing that with that recognition, I think, allows the parent to say, I can communicate values and norms and set boundaries and consequences without asking my child to erase who they are in their own relationship with life. And so to do that with a both and approach, I think, is a depth psychological ethical way to approach discipline and consequences and boundaries with a depth psychological sensibility. Honors the fact that you are letting your child remain their own unique self while communicating realities of life. And those two things do not have to be exchanged for one or the other. The child doesn't have to erase their own uniqueness in order to learn that life comes with certain boundaries and consequences, and the parent gets to communicate those things for the well-being of the child. Difference between parenting for perfection and parenting for wholeness comes down to a parent's ability to be fully human with their child. There can be narratives, cultural expectations that a parent never show frustration, never show anger, never show sadness, perhaps partners never arguing. But that sort of inscribes, I think, for our children that these things don't belong, that they're not allowed, and whether that's communicated non-verbally or verbally, we're setting a pattern in place in which we not only can't inhabit the full range of being human, we're also communicating to our children that these emotions or disagreements themselves don't belong in love, that there's something else that have to be housed in some other place or have to be denied or excluded. And parenting for wholeness lets all of that in. It recognizes all of that comes with responsibility and care, but it approaches parenting with the understanding that I want my child to be able to feel the full range of emotions, to be able to disagree and it not be shameful or too difficult to hold. So parenting for wholeness is approaching parenting with the hope and the intention that we're going to hold space for all of life, the challenging and the pleasant, versus coming with a prescribed image of what some ideal is, and which part of our humanity has to be left to the side in order to be a parent. Um, and from a depth psychological perspective, anything that is left out, or excluded or marginalized in a relationship or in ourselves doesn't go away. It just comes back as symptom and disruption and pain. I think for healthcare professionals, therapists working with parents and children, a depth psychological perspective brings sort of a different angle of observation into the room. There are so many narratives and advice around parenting and raising children that I think depth psychology creates room for pause, for contemplation, for sitting with, giving enough time for the parent to listen for who they are, what they actually value, and do the same for their children. Who is this person I'm in the room with, that I'm sharing life with, that I'm communicating with in all these ways? And are both of us allowed in that context? And what have I been doing that either leaves part of my humanity out or leaves part of their humanity out? And so depth psychology for a therapist, I think, is less prescription and more pause and time and presence to say, what is here, who is here, and how do we negotiate this relationship in a way in which everyone present gets to belong and gets to become their fullest self. Rejection in parenting, I think, is inevitable. And so, how we bracket those projections when we're engaging with our children, it's challenging because projections inevitably are unconscious. So, one of the things it requires is sort of observing ourselves and our responses to our children over time. And one thing that can help along the way is, especially when there's repeated patterns in our parenting relationships, when we're having the same fight or having the same frustrations, to ask ourselves, watch what we're saying, watch how we're reacting, and ask ourselves, who's being frustrated in this experience? Where does that expectation come from? And part of that questioning is recognizing that we inherit patterns from our own families, from the way we were raised. And so when we respond with disappointment, frustration, and anger, we can say, is that really ours? Or the things am I repeating things I heard? And do I really think that way? Do I really want to communicate that? And that, I think, creates enough pause in our engagements to excavate where our reactions come from, whether they're authentically ours or whether we are regurgitating a history and narratives of ways of communicating and parenting that we actually don't ascribe to, but are just echoing and repeating over time. So it's always good to ask where that thing I just said, where did that come from? Where have I heard that before? Who does that belong to? Is it mine? And do I want it to be a part of this relationship?